Welcome aboard, my friends. Welcome aboard. I'm Lee Perry. I'm the pirate therapist, and this is your safe little ship in the middle of some potentially very real emotional seas. Out here, we don't pretend the waters are always calm. We can have anxiety and depression and trauma, and it can be very messy, but it's all kind of marvelous in how it all interacts with our bodies and our minds, and how our brains and bodies try and keep us afloat and get us through day to day. I'm not here as a perfect captain with all the answers. I'm here as a fellow traveler with a lantern, perhaps. I want to help you explore the stories you've carried since childhood, the patterns you're stuck in now, and the tiny choices that can start to turn your ship. On this deck, every feeling is welcome, every question is allowed, and no one gets thrown overboard just for struggling and having a hard time. So, grab yourself a tasty beverage, find yourself a good spot by the rail, and settle yourself in. Together, we're going to learn how to perhaps spot troubled waters coming and maybe get a leg up and navigate these waters with a little more honesty, a little more courage, and a whole lot more compassion. So, today on The Pirate Therapist, we're going to talk about the signals that we want to watch for. These are not diagnostic criteria, but things to pay attention to as they might be signaling troubled waters. We talk about hygiene, how we dress, whether we make eye contact, how we hold ourselves, and all the little ways that we show up in the world that can actually be quiet clues or signal flares about our own mental health. These are not perfect clues. They're not diagnostic tools, but they're little nonverbal signals that our bodies are sending through our behaviors. I want to say this right at the start. This is not an episode about judging yourself. Don't judge yourself any harder, or just show yourself a little compassion. If you hear yourself in any of this, the goal is not shame. The goal is curiosity and maybe a little bit more understanding and kindness towards yourself, recognizing that you're just human and that's okay. So let's set sail. Let's start with the basics: hygiene and everyday care. Most of us know that our baseline, what it looks like when we're doing okay. Maybe you shower regularly, brush your teeth without thinking about it, change your clothes, and your room is at least vaguely under control. Well, there are seasons where all of that can feel really huge, really big. You know, the days when taking a shower feels like climbing a mountain, when the idea of getting out of bed and finding clean clothes is hard, let alone turning on the water, washing everything and drying it off. It feels like too many steps for our brain to hold all together at once. The dishes pile up as we create new life form experiments. Laundry becomes a study in geological layers. You might have people say, well, hey, just wash your face, you'll feel better. Or if they're really blunt and tactless, you might have someone in your life say, look, you look awful, pull it together. These kind of things just make you want to scream. But if that's familiar, I want you to hear me, that this is not you being lazy or gross. That is your mental engine running on fumes. When we're depressed and burned out, when we're grieving, when we're stuck in trauma responses, the brain quietly shifts into survival mode. It cares about the absolute basics. It doesn't want the big fancy stuff. It doesn't care about that. When you're in survival mode, you're trying to get from point A to point B. You're not trying to get any of the extra fancy parts that make life a little better. You're just trying to get through. It may be something as little as getting through the day or feeding yourself something. Grooming and tidying live way down on the priority list. It's not that they don't matter, it's that your system is trying to conserve energy in the way it can. So if you notice your hygiene is slipping, not for a day or two, but as a pattern, that can be a little light blinking on your dashboard saying, hey, something may not be all right. You may have to pay attention to that. And rather than using that as ammunition by saying to yourself, "Ugh, look at you, you can't even shower." I want you to experiment with seeing it as information, not a judgment. Maybe the question changes from what is wrong with me to wow, things are being really heavy right now. What kind of support do I need? And when you're in that place, even a little compassion counts, especially towards yourself. So if brushing your teeth once a day is what's possible, that's not pathetic. That's an act of self care. Changing into clean socks is small, but it can be an effective way as a little self care. Washing your face with a wipe is an act of positive attention towards yourself. Micro self care still sends your brain the message that I still matter, even if it's a little. You're not failing, you're exhausted. So let's talk about clothes for a minute, how we dress and what that might be saying. Clothes are often the first sentence we speak before we open our mouths. Some outfits say, "Look at me, I'm here." Some say, "Please, for the love of everything, don't really see me." Some say, "I am holding it together with eyeliner and caffeine," or "There is too much blood in my caffeine system." Our clothes might even say, "Nothing to see here. I'm fine. Move along. Do not ask any questions." All of these things can be said by how we dress before we even open our mouths. So for some of us, when we feel good, we dress with more color or creativity. When we feel low, we slide into baggy sweatshirts or old t shirts and things that can help us feel comfort, but yet still disappear. For others, it's the opposite. When we feel awful inside, we put on our best armor. Hair is done, makeup is flawless, our outfit is on point, because if the outside looks controlled, maybe, just maybe, the inside will follow. And I'll tell you right now, that's kind of me. When I really struggle, I have a tendency to dress really nice when I go to work. There's a little clue. Neither of those patterns is wrong. They're just different ways of using clothing to communicate or to protect. There's also a question of worthiness underneath. If I don't feel worthy of being seen, I may stop putting an effort into how I present. If I don't feel safe, I might hide my body in layers. If I've been told my whole life that appearance is the only thing that matters, I might exhaust myself trying to look perfect even when I'm falling apart. We have to name this. Not everyone has the same resources. Poverty, disability, chronic illness, neurodivergence, these are all things that shape what put together can realistically look like. So we never want to use clothes as a way to judge someone's value. Instead, we can use our own patterns as a gentle database. Ask yourself, when I feel most like me, what do I wear? Ask yourself this, when I feel like hiding, what am I reaching for? What kind of clothes? What do I want to slip into? When I'm trying to convince the world I'm okay, what does it look like when I do that? And then, very gently, you might experiment with choosing one item that feels more like your true self, even when nobody else sees it. It could be a favorite comfortable t shirt underneath a hoodie, it could be fun socks, a piece of jewelry, but it's less about fashion than it is about telling yourself, this is what I wear when I feel good. I want to have a piece of that. Now, as far as eye contact and voice and body language, we're all taught a lot of rules about this. Look people in the eye and stand up straight. Speak clearly. And sure, these can be useful, but underneath a lot of what we're seeing is a mental state. It's not about moral character. Avoiding eye contact, for example, can mean a lot of things. It can be anxiety. If I look at you, I might forget what I need to say. It can be trauma. Eye contact felt dangerous at one point, so to be safe, I learned how to look away. It can be autism or ADHD. Eye contact makes it harder for me to process. It can be cultural or shyness or simply just a habit that you've developed. On the flip side, intense eye contact can be a mask. If I look confident enough, maybe you won't notice that I'm terrified. So even here, the same behavior can mean very different things. So if you recall, I said this is not diagnostic criteria, it's just signals to pay attention to. This is why. So our voices tell stories too. Depression often flattens our tone, it slows our speech and makes things everything that we're saying and doing feel like we're slogging through mud. Conversely, anxiety speeds everything up. I'm talking too fast or rambling. Perhaps I'm apologizing a lot when there's nothing to apologize for, or I'm laughing all the time over things that aren't funny. Trauma can pull us into one of two extremes. It can put us very small and quiet, or very loud and animated, whichever one we feel will keep us safest in the moment. And then there's posture. When we feel ashamed, defeated, and exhausted, our bodies tend to curl in, our shoulders lean forward, our head goes down, our arms cross. But when we feel safer and more confident, we naturally expand. Our chest opens up, our shoulders relax, our feet more grounded. Now, posture tweaks are not a cure at all, but you can't stand up straight your way out of a major depression. You can't do that. It might help and it might give you that little signal that you matter, but it's not going to fix everything. Okay. But sometimes just that small physical adjustment can give your brain that tiny signal that perhaps we're not under attack right in this moment. We're not under immediate attack. It's okay not to be completely hunkered down right now. And it may be that the danger is past and that we don't need to be quite as much on guard or so tightly hunkered down. If it's safe to do this right now, just check in with your own body. How are you sitting and standing? What happens if you uncurl just a little bit? Drop your shoulders, let your jaw loosen, take a slow, deep breath. Ask yourself if everything is okay. Is the reason for our fear gone? You're not fixing your life in that breath. You're just saying hello to your body. You're just checking in. You're doing a diagnostic. You're just seeing where you're at. You don't need to hold your breath anymore, perhaps, if the danger is gone. I also want to look at the flip side about when we look fine, maybe even great, and we're quietly not doing well at all. So many folks, especially high achievers, caregivers, the strong friend, a lot of us who've been taught to tough it out, get really good at performing this. They show up showered, dressed, smiling, cracking jokes, and getting things done. And inside, they feel numb, overwhelmed, and like they're barely hanging on. Sometimes the more polished the presentation, the more desperate the person feels to keep the mask from slipping. If you let anyone see how bad it is, everything will fall apart. Is that what you're feeling inside when you dress nice and make sure you're all presentable? Or perhaps if I look like I'm struggling, I may lose my job, I may lose my role, I might lose my identity as who I am, as the person who has it together, as the person who has everything under control and doesn't have to worry about anything because I can control everything. Yeah, that's never true. So we end up holding these two truths at once. Yes, changes in how we present ourselves can signal that mental health is shifting. And no, you cannot always tell how someone is doing just by looking. So we want to pay attention to these signal flares. We don't necessarily want to judge or try and diagnose from these signal flares. We just want to pay attention and perhaps check in with ourselves or with somebody else if we see things shifting. You might even recognize this in your own story. Okay, maybe there's a season where everyone told you that you're doing amazing and you're strong and you thought, if you only knew. If that's you, I'm glad you're listening right now. Your worth is not derived from how well you keep the act up. Your worth does not come from how well you pretend that you're doing okay. So, what do we do with all of this? First, for yourself, you can start treating your outer presentation like a dashboard. Stop treating it like a report card. When you notice, maybe I've worn the same clothes for a few days in a row now, or I haven't wanted to look at anyone in the eye lately, instead of jumping straight to judgment, try and ask yourself the question, okay, what might this be trying to tell me? What is my body trying to say? Am I more tired, sad, and overwhelmed, or scared that I've more so than I've been willing to admit? What kind of care or support would help me right now, even a little? But remember, you have to acknowledge this. Sometimes the next step is tiny. Drink some water, open a window, text a friend, and make that therapy call that you've been putting off. Sometimes it's just acknowledging, wow, I don't think I'm okay. And just let that be true. There's no judgment in that. There is just the admission that you acknowledge that you're struggling, and we all struggle. You can't address anything that you adamantly refuse to acknowledge is wrong. So admitting to yourself that what you are feeling, honestly, it allows you to address it. Denial requires that you ignore how you're really feeling, and thus you cannot address it. Secondly, for others, if you notice someone's appearance or energy has changed a lot, maybe they seem more neglected than usual. Maybe they're hyper controlled. That can be a cue to check in, but do so gently. Ask them, hey, you seem a little bit different lately. How are you doing? Really? That's a lot kinder than saying, dude, you look tired, or you let yourself go. Those are kind of mean, especially when someone is in a depressive state. So please remember, we're not here to play detective. We're not here to diagnose people at the grocery store. We're here to show up with a little more compassion because we know how complicated it is inside of our own skin. So as we bring the ship back to harbor, I know today's kind of a short episode, but as we bring things back around, here's the heart of what I want you to carry with you. How you present yourself, how you care for your body, how you dress, and how you speak, how you move. These It's a quiet language, this nonverbal language, at least in our bodies. Sometimes it will honestly reflect our mental health. Sometimes it will be a mask. Either way, you deserve to have that language listened to with curiosity, not with condemnation. I don't say these things so you will judge yourself or someone else. It's not about judgment. It's about recognizing a signal flare can be a signal for help. If you've noticed your own signals changing, that doesn't mean you're failing. It means something in you is asking for you to pay attention. You're not a mess to be fixed. You're a human being sending out distress flares the only way you know how. So this week, maybe pick one small act of outward care for yourself. It could be washing your hair, putting your clothes on that you like, comfortable, something that doesn't necessarily make you want to hide. We want to look for that part of you, how you dress when you feel good about yourself. Take a little piece of that and incorporate that into how you dress this week. Or perhaps look up enough to meet someone's eyes just for a half a second longer. Whatever it is, let that be a love letter from you to you that says, you matter. I want to thank you for coming with me today. So until next time, keep an eye on yourself and on your crew, inside and out. And remember, you deserve a ship that you can live in, not just survive on. So for this week, I wish you all the best. Please take care, and I will talk to you again next week.